Howard wanted a cigarette. Badly. Badly. He hadn't had one in years, but he wanted one now. He always wanted to smoke when confronted by something strange, something bad, and something he couldn't explain. Howard was a patrolman, a 20-year veteran, inching closer to his vaunted pension by the day. He'd always been a patrolman, never wanted to be anything but. He worked for a smaller department, and his duties had allowed him to conduct many an investigation, not just write traffic tickets. What was worrying Howard now, was murder. Murder. Oh, it hadn't happened yet, but Howard was pretty sure it would happen, which is why he wanted a cigarette. The current situation reminded him of a case that had taken place early in his career, back when he had, in fact, smoked a pack a day. 20 years earlier, during the summer and early fall, couples parked in Lover's Lane and some of the other isolated spots around town reported being stalked and harassed by a creepy individual who would peer through their windows and attempt to gain access to their vehicles. Witnesses didn't provide much in the way of a description other than that of a big man with a broad face and intensely staring eyes. Yeah, right. Howard was intimately involved in the investigation, and his suspicions eventually began to form around a rather odd young man named Wally. Wally lived with his old man, a hopeless alcoholic, in a tumble-down house on one of the town's meanest streets. He was an extraordinary figure. Not tall, not fat. He was big-boned, which gave his frame an impression of mass. Wally had a round moon face, as pale as the moon, large black eyes, and a shock of black hair as wild and unkempt as a fright wig. Wally just kind of wandered around town, all day long and into the wee small hours of the morning. He seldom showed up at school, even though he was apparently extremely intelligent. Howard himself had tried remonstrating with Wally's drunken father about the need for the boy to attend and finish school. But it was hopeless. The stalking and harassment cases were never solved. There were never any arrests made in connection with the various complaints, largely because Howard and his colleagues began their own campaign to drive the kids away from Lover's Lane. In the end, it wasn't very romantic to have some cop shine his flashlight at you and bang on your side window while barking, "This isn't a safe area," in a gravelly voice. Whilst all this had been going on, Wally had been questioned, but never more than questioned. Still, Howard determined to keep an eye on the peculiar young man, and as a result, had been watching him for nearly 2 decades. Wally's father died, but his grotesque son continued to live in the crumbling house until it was eventually condemned as unsafe, and where Wally dwelt afterwards, no one seemed to know or care. And then, some 3 years before, Wally was murdered. It had been a rather grisly slaying with indications of torture. Wally had been found face down in a water-filled drainage ditch, his hands wired behind his back. He had been shot 6 times. 6 times. Howard wondered, What had he done? Had he seen something he wasn't supposed to see? Had he been window peeping again? Or stumbled across some form of illegal activity? Wally had been a strange and disquieting figure, but it was hard to imagine anyone hating him enough to kill him like that. But someone clearly did. Howard had questioned a number of individuals, but couldn't find anything concrete, anything pointing the finger at a particular person or group. Wally was dead. That was all. And now, Wally was back. He was back. It was impossible, but he was back. It had to be him. It was the same scenario from 20 years ago. A strange hulking figure appeared from out of the darkness to spy on young couples making love and try and gain access to their vehicles. And this time, Howard was afraid something worse would happen. Something far, far worse. And that very night, it did. A young man had staggered out of the woods to collapse onto a busy road. Motorists who stopped to help found the victim drenched by a perspiration of blood. The victim kept mumbling something about, keep him off, keep him off, and kept repeating a woman's name over and over and over and over. Howard was one of the first officers on scene, and it was he who discovered the abandoned car, also awash with blood, discovered the abandoned car at the base of an abandoned farm silo, sitting out in the middle of a deserted field. Howard found the young woman sitting in the foundations of the silo. She was alive, but was in a catatonic state, so Howard stepped from the foundation and called for both an ambulance and backup. And as he did so, he noticed movement among the nearby trees. A tall and incredibly obese figure, so obese as to appear bloated. Bloated with fresh blood? A tall and incredibly obese figure stepped out into the moonlight. It was Wally. Howard could see the remembered black eyes flashing at him with cold malignancy. Wally was clad in his traditional red short-sleeved shirt, buttoned up at the neck, his baggy jeans and suspenders. But as Howard stared back at him, trying to process the fact that Wally was somehow still alive, the balloonish form seemed to deflate? At least that's the metaphor that flashed through Howard's mind. It was like watching air being let out of a balloon. Wally just seemed to shrivel up before his eyes, shrivel up and rise into the air. The thing that had been Wally floated slowly up into the moonlit sky, where it hung, shriveled like a bladder or wineskin that had been emptied of fluid, and hung there before floating off into the night. Howard was in a veritable state of shock. He was relieved when his backup and the ambulance arrived, and he could throw himself into the task of helping the young woman. Hours later, the old patrolman sat alone in the dark at home, dying for a cigarette. He knew what he saw, and he knew it was impossible. I must be getting too damned old. And then the phone rang. I gotta see you, man. I gotta see you right away. It was Sonny, one of the local ne'er-do-wells. Yeah, what is it? I can't tell you, man. Over the phone. Meet me at the Plaza on Kerr in an hour. Howard arrived at the deserted plaza parking lot at 3 a.m. to find Sonny waiting for him. His first words, It's come back. Who's come back? Howard demanded. But he already knew what Sonny was going to say before he said it. Wally! Wally's dead. I know. I was there when it happened. And now he's come back to kill us. To kill me. It appeared that 3 years earlier, Sonny and a group of his associates had met out at the old abandoned silo to discuss various business propositions. Someone had heard a faint noise coming from within the foundations, and a rather unpleasant fellow named Big John pulled Wally from the shadows. Johnny wanted to know what he overheard, what he knew. But you know that crazy fool Wally. He just stared at the guy and laughed. So Johnny lost it and killed him. And you helped. No, I swear to God I didn't. I just helped dump the body. After binding his wrists with barbed wire. No. And now he's back and he's going to kill me. Wally's dead. Oh, yeah? Well, look up there. Sonny was pointing up at the night sky, now fully lit by the rays of a now full moon. The strange floating bladder that Howard had previously witnessed floated gently across the sky, then began to descend to earth, landing with a plop. With a plop where it began to swell and expand, filling out into the rotund figure of Wally, but getting bigger, grosser, colossal, swelling like an enormous hot air balloon with a grinning death's head atop of it. And as it swelled up, it began to shuffle forward. He's gonna suck out all our blood, Sonny screamed. And what happened next happened so quickly that Howard had no time to react, as Sonny pulled an automatic from under his jacket and fired. And Wally seemed to explode, unleashing a sonic boom and a tidal wave of blood, guts, and stench, which knocked Howard down and out. There was never any official explanation for the nocturnal explosion at the plaza, but crews in hazmat suits were on site for a month. Sonny died in the outburst, but the authorities also discovered splattered flesh and blood from a number of missing individuals, one of them a bad man named Big John. Howard is retired now. This was his last case. He now lives on the other side of the country, and yeah, he's taken up smoking again. The moral of the story: never empty a bladder in public, whether you're dead or not. It's unhygienic. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring such cryptids as the Night Floaters, werewolves, and the Black-Eyed Children. So again, please consider subscribing. Please help me to reach my goal of 2,500 subs in 2022. Till midnight. Cheers. Pictures used in today's video, courtesy of Pix here, that's PX here, while the music is either going to be Unseen Horrors or The Ghost Processional, both by that patron of the internet, Kevin MacLeod. They're both so great I can't make up my mind. But I will. And you can let me know in the comments if you think I made the right choice.